Hey there, Midas Canada viewers, resistors from all over the globe. Today we're going to talk about something that I think is really needs to be looked at this moment. We're going to talk about moving beyond the boycott, which in Canada has been incredibly powerful. It has brought Canadians together with a real clear understanding of protecting our nation through the choices that we make in terms of purchasing. So moving from the notion of just boycotting to actually building a vision of national food sovereignty, a national food security, and building food sustainability at the local, regional, national levels. I think it's a very important topic, a very exciting topic. But I want to begin by saying we've had incredible responses, as always, from all over the world. Our Thanksgiving messages have just been really moving from everybody from, as far away as from South Africa, from Germany, to our friends in Nebraska. So thank you so much. I want to share with you a package I received. It was waiting for me at Perfect Books in Ottawa, which is where I buy many of my resistance books to study and to prepare for these. And this is a book. Look at this book. This is on Taller Cranston, the incredible ice dancer, artist, painter. The book's called Taller Cranston, Ice, Paint, Passion. And it's by his sister, Philippa Cranston Barron. And she writes me this letter. I just want to share with you. It feels so good doing this work because people are so positive. She writes, Dear Charlie, if you feel a tiny bit of drag sometimes, please don't worry. It's just me and a bunch of other resistors hanging on to your coattails and feeling like, fuck yeah. Finally, someone sees what we see, knows what we know, and has the capacity to express it with power and clarity. I'm sending you this book I wrote about my brother, Taller Cranston. He too was a resistor. Back in the day, he pushed against the stodgy figure skating establishment, and he introduced artistry and creativity that changed the sport forever. Early on, the fans understood and embraced what he was doing, and the judging establishment eventually came around. Taller Cranston changed figure skating, but more than that, he inspired people. When he died of a fatal heart attack at his home in Mexico in 2015, the messages that flooded in from all over the world weren't about unfair judging or his Olympic medal or his 20,000 paintings. People were saying, he made me brave. He made me dream big. He inspired me to have the courage to be who I am. It is that legacy now 10 years after my brother passed away that I am committed to preserving. I have established Taller International, that's tallerinternational.com. I'm working to take the messages and values Taller stood for to a new generation of Canadians who don't know or have forgotten that Canada has always had independent, creative trailblazers, artists, athletes, and performers. Many of them are in this book. For example, Taller did an album cover for Joni Mitchell. Wow. Appeared in Leonard Cohen's film I Am a Hotel and worked on Stars on Ice, produced by Alex Trebek. I believe that the values he stood for of courage, creativity, authenticity, and hard work are values shared by most Canadians. As you share in your daily newsletters on Substack, it's the inspirational stories and the reality of who we are as Canadians, what we believe, and what we will stand up for that will get us through. You are leading the way in challenging Canadians to dream big, pursue our destiny, be who we are, and to stand the fuck up. And we are grateful. I will never again spend a cent in the United States. In fact, I've turned down several recent money opportunities. I campaigned for Bruce Fanjoy, and I'm proud to live in the riding that booted Mr. Pierre Poilievre out a few months ago. I am relentlessly buying Canadian, wearing my elbows up button, and making efforts to stay informed, which is hard in the daily torrent of shit. That's why people check Midas Canada and Charlie Angus Resistance. She says, I have developed a frosty stink face that speaks volumes to friends who still muse about whether or not they will go to Florida this year. What the F? I've discovered that silence is more effective than shrieking. They know where I stand. Thank you for your resistance, your courage, and your unwavering voice in the face of so much that needs challenging. Your work continues to inspire those of us who believe that integrity and truth still matter in public life. Thank you for the joy, humor, and affection that you infuse into everything you do. With respect and gratitude, Philippa Cranston Barron. Wow. Thank you for that. Thank you for this beautiful book. It is going to be here in a place of honor on the Resistance shelf. Thank you. So, on today's show, we're going to talk about the price of eggs. Probably not seemingly the most exciting topic in the world, but a very important topic. Because what we're going to be talking about is how we transition from the boycott and the resistance that people have shown across this country of defying the United States and Donald Trump into building a long term vision of food security and food sovereignty, the importance of getting control of our own food supply and protecting it and building on it. In terms of the boycott, we just saw that the United States liquor companies are crying poor again. They've had an 85% drop in sales to Canada. 85% drop. I mean, their market has disintegrated. We were their number one purchaser of whiskeys and wines and other spirits. That market's gone. And it's not coming back because Canadians are now seeing, well, wait a minute, we have really good whiskeys here in Canada. We have really good wines here. Let's support our own rather than be dependent on a nation that's threatening us. So why don't we take this application of the notion of the boycott becoming a positive and expand it into a larger discussion about how do we ensure that when you go into the grocery store, not only are you getting vegetables and greens that are coming from Canada, but how about getting them locally? Being able to support more and more regional and local food hubs has to be part of our nation building strategy. It's about resilience, and it's about responding to what Canadians have shown. They want to know where their food is coming from, and they want it to be, by and large, Canadian. That's an extraordinary thing to have happened. We can thank Donald Trump for waking us up on that. So let's build on that. So Mark Carney, I know your staff listen to Midas Canada. Write it down. Start a conversation in cabinet about making national food sovereignty and food security a nation building project. Anyways, we'll be talking about that in other episodes. But let's go back to the price of eggs. So when Donald Trump was running in the last campaign, he railed about the price of eggs. He blamed Joe Biden for the price of eggs being so high. He said that when he became president, he would drop the price of eggs on day one. That didn't really happen, did it? In fact, that January that he took office, the price of eggs jumped 15% and then another 10% in February. Now, if you're in Canada, you're thinking, why are they talking about the price of eggs? Because when the price of eggs was hitting, $10.75 a dozen in the United States, in Canada it was down around $3.50 US, and it stayed stable. We weren't seeing spikes in egg prices. We weren't seeing shortages. We didn't see our prime minister have to go beg Europe like Donald Trump knocking door to door, begging to get eggs. I mean, the gall. He went to Denmark to beg for eggs. This as he's threatening to invade Greenland. Needless to say, they gave him the bum's rush. Who did he have to go beg from? Well, he had to go beg from his chief boss, Vladimir Putin. Seriously, to our American viewers, do you want to be eating eggs from Russia? Come on. None of that happened in Canada. Why not? Well, it's because we have a system for agriculture in Canada called supply management. We need to talk about supply management because supply management is under serious threat. It's under direct threat from Donald Trump. He says he's coming for it. He wants to destroy it. But we also have in Canada, amongst the far right, amongst the middle right, and amongst many liberal establishment figures, a real hatred that we have a system of farming that is run by farmers. A system of farming that doesn't need subsidies. A system of farming where the farmers create the market and produce for the market, and it gives them control. They hate that. They'd much rather that our farmers were under control of agribusiness like in the United States. So, to the price of eggs. The average egg farm in the United States has about 1 million birds. There are 5 major agri companies that control egg production in the United States. And it just so happens that we are in the midst of a very dangerous avian bird flu epidemic affecting birds across the continent. This is a very serious issue because we know the 1918 to 1921 so-called Spanish flu, which may have killed upwards of 100 million people, was a result of an avian bird flu that jumps species into humans. And once it jumped into humans, its capacity to kill was staggering, particularly amongst young people. Right now, this modern avian flu has impacted many mammal species. I think there's about 48. It's had huge impacts on sea lions and elephant seal pups, causing major deaths. So far, thankfully, it's not in humans yet, but it has to be seriously monitored. So if it gets into a bird population, that's why the bird population has to be killed. There's no politics here. They have to kill the population of birds in order to prevent spread to other birds, and also out of fear that it may jump to humans. Right now we have RFK and his gang of nutters in charge of vaccines, in charge of watching for serious outbreaks. They have decimated the Center for Disease Control. So we are in a very perilous situation. But okay, avian bird flu hits an American farm that has 1 million birds, and those 1 million birds have to be culled. Well, yeah, prices are going to jump. You're going to see a serious drop in availability of eggs. What about Canada? Well, in Canada, the average farm size for egg production is about 23,000 birds. Huge difference. Those bird farms are spread out all across Canada. We have, I think, over 1,000 egg farms, small operations, sustainable, family run. So if avian bird flu hits one of those farms, it's obviously a tragedy, but you can shift production. So what makes that possible is this principle of supply management. So supply management has three foundational pillars. One is production quotas. So if you want to sell your eggs into the market, and supply management covers eggs, chicken, turkey, and dairy. So if you're in one of those producers and you want to sell into the market, you buy a quota. You buy basically the right to sell into the market. Now, if you want to sell your eggs next to your next door neighbors, or you want to sell them at the farm gate, that's all perfectly fine. But if you're doing big production, you buy quota. So there's quota is the first leg. The second leg is guaranteed pricing, that you know what you're going to produce and you know what you're going to get paid. That's what the board, the supply management board, is going to set the price, selling it to the stores. And then the third element that is under attack all the time is import quotas. The system works because we're not selling our birds, our eggs, our dairy. We're not flooding other markets. We are maintaining a domestic market. And to do that, we have to maintain the guarantees that this market isn't going to be flooded. So this is what Donald Trump is raging about. And this is what a lot of right-wingers in Canada who love to use Donald Trump as an excuse to take down supply management, because they'd much rather have us under the control of the agri-farms than the farmers. But there are serious things that have to be considered for if you're in Canada, for your family, for the quality of food you get. We have much higher standards under the supply management system. So let's talk about dairy. In the United States, they allow growth hormones to be put in dairy so that they can get bigger cows and more production. We don't allow any growth hormones to be put into the dairy supply in Canada. It has to be clean. We don't allow antibiotics in the food supply. If a farm sends its supply of milk to the processing facility, they will test it, and if there's any residue of antibiotics, the whole production line coming from that farm has to be stopped. They won't accept any of it. In terms of the qualities for, I think, what is it called? It's the maximum somatic cell count, SCC. So they test every batch of milk coming in. And the higher the somatic cell count is, the more worrisome it is, because it means that the cow may be sick. The lower the count, the better. So in the United States, their standard is 750,000 they allow before they say it's a problem. In Canada, you can't get to 400,000 in terms of that cell count Otherwise, it gets rejected. So we have much higher standards. But that being said, our dairy farmers are under continual attack. Donald Trump keeps saying we're being mean to farmers in Wisconsin. Now, the fact is there actually is a quota. I mean, the farmers in Wisconsin can sell into Canada. They haven't even tried to meet their quota. But what they would like is to break our market because our market works. So the issue of supply management is always a political football. The Conservatives in Parliament have been trying to get rid of it. I know many Liberals who don't believe in it. Prime Minister Mark Carney is saying that he's not under threat on it and he's going to stand firm. I'd like to believe him. There was a bill brought forward last year in Parliament that was passed that said that the government could not put supply management at risk in any trade negotiations. Many of Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives voted against it, and then it was killed by the unelected Senate. So right now we don't have legislation protecting supply management, but it's an important principle that we have to be thinking about, because if they destroy supply management, it means many of our smaller regional farms, and we have farms all across Canada that are sustainable because they're family-sized farms, because they buy the quota, they do the investing. You can see young family farmers here making a go of it because of this system. If we lose supply management, then it's going to go, like in the United States, to big, massive operations that can flood the market, and it's going to go to agribusiness. That's not a good thing. I want to share with you one other really important lesson I learned about supply management. I was speaking this past summer with the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, UFCW, and there were workers from across the United States and Canada. And I was absolutely shocked to be given a big lecture on the importance of supply management by an American union organizer who organized in the meat packing and the food production plants in the United States. And he said to me, you people do not want to lose your supply management system in Canada, because you not only have good quality chicken that's free of all the antibiotics and all the other threats, but you actually have good paying union jobs in Canada doing the production. He said, if you get rid of supply management, your market will be flooded with chicken coming from plants down in the Bible Belt, where he said the standards are terrible, people are given low wages. He said people wear diapers on the assembly line because they can't take time off. And he said, is that your idea of a fair trade deal? Of course not. We're not going to go along with that. And this is the thing that, the people around Mark Carney who are advising him on this need to understand. Canadians are not going to buy American milk if it comes over the border. We don't want to buy American chicken. We're not going to go there. We want to have our domestic supply. We have a good supply of eggs. We have a good supply of dairy. We have a good supply of chicken. We have a good supply of turkey. These are some of the key backbones of our system. Now, other parts of our system are much more in the larger market system, like hogs, like beef. But we have a system that allows for a sustainable farm economy, our own sovereignty, our own security. Super important. But out of this, let's think of two important things to come out of where we're at right now. Number one is to keep the pressure on the Prime Minister not to think he can cut a deal with Donald Trump on destroying our domestic market economy in terms of agriculture. He has to defend the system that works, because it works for families and it works for farmers. But secondly, we need to have domestic security in terms of food production and local food production, and we have to work towards that. Oh, and there's one other thing too. We have to also continue the pressure that was very much on in the last Parliament from my party, the New Democratic Party. Now the New Democratic Party are much weaker, but the New Democratic Party continually pushed the government for action on the price gouging by the grocery giants, because we do have in Canada a couple of giant firms that control the price of food, and those are, the Loblaws, Sobeys, the giant food operations that have gouged us again and again, ripped us off again and again, engaged in price fixing, screwing over families. People are having a really hard time right now. They're having a hard time getting by. So we need to keep the pressure on the grocery giants that they're not screwing families over, that people can afford to buy good quality food, that we can develop local and regional food economies to sustain ourselves and to protect systems that actually work. So that's where we go from resistance as, my God, our backs are up against the wall, we just get swinging and we're fighting, we're doing everything we can, we're boycotting, to actually saying, where do we go from here? Where do we move our nation? What's the opportunity? And the opportunity is to build on the strength of the boycott and the growing consumer confidence and say, let's ensure that we have a sustainable farm economy, sustainable food economy, and it's based on principles of national sovereignty, and it's built on principles of our food security. I think it's a really powerful moment. I think there's huge opportunities. It's really actually exciting to see how we've come together and how we can continue to come together on this. So, Charlie Angus here at the Midas Canada Network. I'm smelling chicken downstairs. I'm going to go make some eggs. This is a good time for us to talk food. This is a good time for us to resist. We keep kicking at that darkness until it bleeds daylight, my friends. Keep kicking. Thank you. Merci. Megwitch.